Paul Pashot here with Whole Worker, and look, we've arrived in Sonoma County. This is the last of our on the road videos. We've driven 4,700 miles. Now I know it's 2,600 miles across the states from East Coast to West Coast. We took a few deviations, did a little fly fishing along the way, as you saw in past videos. So here we are now, and we're presently in the home search in Sonoma County. In this video, I want to tee off of one of my past videos that's getting a ton of views, called The Psychology of Retirement, Transitioning Effectively. A lot of people are getting a lot of help from that video, and I wanted to have Ellen here again in this on the road video to give her perspective on the transition into those later years from 55 plus, those of us who are pursuing an encore career in that age range. So that's what we're going to cover here. We're going to talk about that in a little bit more depth. What are the transitions that take place, especially from the woman's point of view? And we're going to get that a little later on. Before we do, though, if you're new to the channel, go ahead and subscribe to the channel and ring that bell when you do. That way you get notification every time I post a new video. And don't forget, if you're thinking you're getting something from this video, give this video a like along the way. All right? So I mentioned before that this video is going to talk about those transitions that take place, and I was interested to get my wife's perspective on that, as well as she herself is an encore careerist, having pursued the educational field after homeschooling our children for, what was it?
19 years.
19 years. She decided to go out and get professionally certified. She's got her master's degree in education, her teaching certificates, and has been teaching for a number of years in various school systems. So she's doing that. Whole Worker for me is a bit of my encore career. I am the president of a company I started 21 years ago called the Sarah Group, and we do communications training primarily. And we do it in the pharmaceutical market, and that's been going well. I do that with 20 trainers that I have on my team. And Whole Worker is an attempt to take all that I've learned from my career and the transitions I've made into the digital space. And one of those major transitions was my background is actually in pastoral ministry. Did that for 20 years, plus or minus. Actually only plus, is something like 22, 23 years maybe, depending on how you count them, and then moved into the corporate training world with my consultancy. So the question I want to have Ellen and I talk about here in this short video is, what are some of the transitions that take place that aren't just financial oriented? One of my contentions is that most retirement planning has to do with solely financial planning. And if you watch that video, if you haven't already, The Psychology of Retirement, Transitioning Effectively, that one goes through 4 other types of transitions that take place. There's a physical transition, a psychological transition, a social transition, and a spiritual transition as well. So with that in mind, I wanted Ellen and I to discuss what are some of those maybe not so easily definable transitions that take place. Maybe we can't label one word on it. So I want to put that to Ellen right away. What are some of the transitions that you've noticed as you come into, especially your 60s, trying to navigate a new career and get on with life as maybe not usual, but into your 60s?
There is a change that has to happen. You have to make a mental switch for me, having homeschooled. You know, my whole orientation was around my house, my home, our children, and our family's life. When I moved into public and private schools, I had to transition from thinking primarily about my people to thinking about those people. You know, there was the
teaching other kids is very different from teaching your own kids.
And you're also dealing with,
we have 3, by the way.
Yeah, you're also dealing with parents, and you're dealing with administrations. You're dealing with colleagues, and all of those different people require thought. You know, you can't just say, I'm just going to do the same old thing that I always did. Now I had to really evaluate how do I interact with other people? How do I become as effective a teacher for other people's children as I did with our children?
So there's different spheres of people or different demographics of people, different cohorts
Yes.
that you now have to relate to later in life than you ever had to do in your 30s
Right.
or 40s.
Unfortunately, I'm a social person, so
Yes, she's a
So-
very social person.
so I enjoy that, but I can see where it really mattered that I enjoyed what was important to me, because I'm much older. I'm not going to waste years doing something just because I have to, or because it's the parameters. If those parameters of that job were entirely different, I probably would not have done it. If they had been, well, you're going to sit in a room by yourself and work on the reports for the students for their parents. Okay, that would not have been something that mattered to me.
Mattered to you.
But interacting with the children, with the parents, with the colleagues, with the administration, with other, other schools outside of our school, that always mattered to me quite a bit. And so it was a very helpful, both social and psychological change that I adapted to.
Okay. Now you said something really interesting that I heard. You said, I don't want to waste my time with. So I think that's one of the transitions that takes place. We become very aware, and you and I have discussed this.
Yeah.
You become very aware that, let's face it, there are more years behind than there are in front.
Yeah, and we have limited time to be effective.
Time
in our
is now a
lives.
finite resource. And so you don't want to waste your time. Help me explore that a little bit. How would you see, sorry, we're here in this lovely setting in Sonoma County, but there's a small airport nearby which apparently has grown over the years and now has commuter flights all over the state of California. So
Big jets.
hopefully you could hear me over that. So what's the motivation there in terms of how you determine how you're going to spend your time? What's wasting your time? I guess that's the question I'm really asking.
Well, I think that comes back to who you are individually, what matters to you individually. What matters to me
Okay.
is interacting with people.
So your priorities.
Yes.
So people are a priority.
People are a priority. Values are a priority.
Values, okay.
It mattered to me that I was doing something that would be effective for humanity. You know?
Okay.
I kind of referred to this in the
previous On the Road video.
that-
If you haven't watched that, check it out. It's right here. That little card is above me there.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I didn't want to be a paper pusher, a pencil pusher.
Pencil pusher or a paper pusher.
Right? Just doing something to pass the time and to make a little money. I
Right.
wanted to do something that was
Right.
going to be impactful on society.
Okay.
And for me, teaching is that job.
All right.
Okay.
So that's a major transition right there, is realizing that, like I said, there are more years behind than in front, and we have to start. We need, as folks 50, 55 plus, we need to start thinking about how we want to effectively use what time there is left on this planet. A very serious one that I know that's affected me for sure.
Absolutely.
For me, again, relating it to your criterion about people, it involves people. I don't want to spend time with people that don't want to spend time with me, for example. I mean, I'll be honest, right? There are fewer years left, so I want to make sure I'm investing myself in people who see that I have something to bring them in terms of a relationship, right? And that's become very clear to me over the past, say, 5 years or so. Very, very clear. So what are some of the other realizations that you've come to? Especially, I'm thinking especially because a lot of women are going to watch this video, maybe from a woman's perspective. What are some of the realizations you've come to in terms of the transitions
Oh, that's a good one.
as we get older? Yeah, I think so.
The reason
I can't address it.
the reason that's a good one is because I don't know if I'd say fully embraced, but I have absolutely embraced the value that women have to offer this earth
Okay,
that
yeah.
has previously been undervalued and under-recognized. When I was in the beginning of my career, out of college, that was back in the 70s, late 70s, and the women's movement had just begun, and it was very radical. It was very radical. Most young women today are the beneficiaries of not having had to go through that change period. But women my age and those in this retirement age group, we all made big changes to be, to be who we are today.
Right.
But even more so when I went back to work and, went to work outside
the home. Yes.
I knew that it mattered that I was a strong, intelligent, healthy female, and that no one...
She's all those things.
No one, and particularly not you, but no one, like men, could take that away from me.
Always mothering.
Could take that away from me.
Right. Yeah.
And prior to that, men had, dominated all the time, and they took everything away from women. So that was a very big change, and one that I, as you said, I'm from the woman's perspective, from a female perspective, that's one that is ongoing, and I absolutely applaud the younger generation that lives knowing that they are fully valuable.
Yep.
It may sound strange to you, but that wasn't always the way it was.
Yeah,
so.
Very true. Very true.
Yeah.
We've lived through a lot.
Yeah.
Now let's bring it and bring it to a close. Let's talk about the actual transition that you and I are in the midst of. We did a severe physical transition too, and sort of setting ourselves up, not unusual really, and setting ourselves up for our golden years. We wanted to be closer to the geographic area that we wanted to retire into, and so we moved from East Coast to West Coast. We've spent time living on both coasts. I'm originally from the West Coast, from the San Francisco Bay Area. My wife is from the New York metropolitan area. So that's a little bit of the reason why we've lived on two different coasts. But now we're in the midst of this transition, as we have with these on the road videos, transitioning back to the West Coast. What are some of the things that you're feeling that maybe others have experienced too when they move? We've got the panoply of types of relationships and types of lives. There are people who get divorced later in life. There are people who become widows and widowers later in life, and they have to make those transitions. Many of those people decide to do a physical change themselves too, to start a new life, so to speak. Let's use that phrase. That's what we're doing here. What are some of the things, in light of the fact that we're in the midst of that transition right now, what are some of the things with that physical transition that you see affecting you now, again, from the woman's perspective, and in the future for both of us as a couple?
You kind of generated a few thoughts there.
Yep.
One is, well, physically, it takes stamina.
Yeah, right.
And determination.
It's been a little stressful.
And it engenders stress.
Yeah.
So preparing yourself to deal with the stress of something like this kind of move is this kind of change, I could say, because whether it's a move or becoming widowed or, divorced or something, it's a change. I think preparing yourself for it in some way is, I don't know if you can really do it, but you can certainly give it a try. Start saying goodbye to people earlier. Start looking into the area you're moving to, or read about widowhood. I mean, it sounds kind of morbid, but on the other hand, if you have to go through it, you're going to have to read about it anyway. You're going to have to learn about it.
Sure.
Preparing yourself is one thing. The other thing is it takes courage to do it. And there are many people who have said, I would never do what you guys are doing.
Yeah, right. That's true.
And, on the one hand, I feel a little bit like, yeah, darn right, I don't mean that in a negative way. I just mean that, we've done kind of radical things in the past. And
we have.
So here's another radical
thing. Lived
thing.
overseas twice.
Yeah. It's not the most radical thing we've done, but it is a little bit along those lines. Yeah. And so courage is really important. Tenacity, to stick with it.
Yep.
And you were saying about physical, I guess just try to maintain your regimen of health.
And that gets difficult when you're on the road,
eating,
living out of a suitcase.
Yeah, that can be a little bit hard. Yeah, healthy eating, exercise. You've mentioned about the spiritual aspects.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
In the previous video.
Yeah, absolutely have to have some kind of anchor to base your future on.
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
whether it's a religious anchor or a practice of some kind of healthy or reflective nature.
A meditation practice
Sure.
or a prayer practice of any
Reading
type.
something,
Reading into the wisdom literatures
Right.
we've talked about here
Yeah.
on Whole Worker before. Yeah.
Right.
And I want to interject. You mentioned the stress that comes that you can't plan for it, but you can be aware that it's
Yes.
coming. So
Right.
cut yourself some slack.
Right.
Because
Right.
there are going to be stressors.
Yes.
So be aware of it. It's not going to be smooth sailing. And if you've gone on a long trip, made a long transition,
Been
guess
with the
what?
same person
Yeah,
for
been with the same
6 or 7
person
weeks
for
on end.
a long time in one
As
car.
much as you love the person, it can be a
Yes.
bit, you
Yeah,
know,
right.
you get a little bit on each other's nerves.
So you can cut yourself a little slack. That's one of the
Yeah.
ways you can cope
Yeah,
with it.
absolutely.
Cut yourself some slack because you will be stressed at
Right.
some point,
Yeah, like for
and
example,
the stress will flare up.
Yeah, for example, letting yourself sleep another half hour.
Not a problem.
Yeah.
While you're on the road or in a transition,
Right.
sleep is a very effective coping mechanism
Yeah.
to ward off that stress.
Mhm.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yep. Pretty good. Anything else you want to add here in the end? Any other kinds of?
Oh, I was going to say that what I want to say is that make sure that what you're doing is meaningful to you and hopefully meaningful to the society that you live in.
Oh, okay.
That's
cool.
what I want to say.
You mean in that transition, make sure you're
In the
going towards a
transition,
meaningful.
yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Because as we've talked about a lot here on the Whole Worker channel, in a large measure, we're talking about purpose in life, and we get a lot of our purpose. We can argue this up and down the pike, but we get a large part of our purpose from the work we do. It's the one thing we spend most of our waking hours doing. So it might as well be something that brings us fulfillment and purpose. I have other videos that you can check out here on the channel that go through that idea and discuss that idea a little bit. But we'll bring it to a close right there. Well, thanks, Ellen.
Thank you, Paul.
All right. It was a lot of fun. All right. So before we close out, a couple things I want to mention. If you found some value in this video, give us a like right now and subscribe to the channel. And when you do, ring that bell, and that way you'll get notification just on YouTube. You won't get spammed with all kinds of email. Every time you pull up your YouTube page, it'll notify you that I've posted a new video, okay? In addition, in closing, I want to recommend a couple other videos. One, the video that we referenced a couple times here, which is The Psychology of Retirement, Transitioning Effectively. If you didn't see that video, that's the one that we're sort of teeing off of here in this video. So watch that video. And then I want to recommend this short view list of videos. There's 3 videos. I call it Encore Career 101. If you're not at all certain or sure what an Encore career even is, if you watch those 3 videos, those will give you a little bit of a definition and show you how to pursue an Encore career. That's for those of us who are 55 plus and decided that we want to make a change. We don't want to go back to the same old. There's something else we want to do. There's work we really want to get to before we totally check out. Take that term any way you want. All right, I'm Paul Pichotte, along here with my wife, Ellen Pichotte, and we'll see you again on Whole Worker. Bye-bye.